Now, what is a parenthesis? It's the American term, so it does crop up in various error messages. It's simply brackets. So above your 9 and 0 on a keyboard, you've got open brackets, close brackets. It's referring to that. And for every open bracket, you should have a closed one, which is the standard rules of putting in a calculation using brackets. But why do we need to use brackets? Well, the first reason is to ensure that Excel is calculating correctly. Now, before I go on to that, I'm going to do a quick calculation here. Now, this calculation is the number of items and the cost per item. So what are we using for that? We are using a multiplication, which is actually the asterisk. So if I go to that multiplied by that, it gives me the answer when I press the tick. And about copying down calculations, there's various ways of doing that, and I'm sure everybody on the call potentially will do this in a different way. For this example, I'm going to double click and it will copy it down. And I am going to leave that line because it's actually irrelevant in there, and it's just given me the multiplication. So that's nice and easy. This one, I'm going to use the division. So what is the cost as a percentage of budget? I'm using it by dividing one into the other, and I'm going to accept that. And then I'm simply going to apply the percentage format. And if you want to, you could show it to 1 or 2 decimal places, but I'm just going to leave it like that, and I can drag that down and it would tell me whether I've overspent, underspent, etc. So that is division. Now we're going to start looking at doing brackets. So when you're simply using one thing, you're using an and or a minus or a division or a multiplication, you don't necessarily need to use brackets. And there are a lot of people who I have met through training who actually do equal sum and put their calculation in the brackets. Unless you're doing a sum, you don't need to do that. I'm not sure where that came from, but I do meet many people who do that. So let's just have a look at this calculation that I want to do here. I've got 3 figures, 2, 5 and 10. When I look at that, it would obviously depend what I'm trying to do with those figures. But if I was going to add 2 to 5 and multiply it by 10, which is this, then Excel would say, you've asked me to do 2 things at once. Okay, it cannot physically do 2 things at once. It has to do a logical sequence with a formula when you're asking it to do more than one thing. So if you did equals 2 plus 5 multiplied by 10, and I've used the cell references, it would give us 52. And that is because it is actually doing this. So by default, Excel will take multiplication as a higher priority than an addition. So it'll be 10, 10 fives, 50 plus 2 is 52. But if I do want it to add 2 to 5 first, then this is where, and I'll just press F2 to edit, that you need your brackets or parentheses. So don't worry too much about the rules. Just remember, if you're asking it to do more than one thing in one calculation, you need to tell it what to do first. And by doing that, we've got the answer that you may expect by looking from left to right. So please make sure if you're asking it to do more than one thing, use your brackets, because it could be any combination of these. And in fact, it's that one that it will use. And bizarrely on Facebook and things, lots of people put, oh, if we do this calculation, what's the answer? And you may have seen something like that on there if you've not used to using it all the time. So let's just have a look at this one here. I've got a number of items and I've got a cost per item and I've got the VAT. So what I want to do is add the item to the VAT and multiply it by how many. So just to think about that, I want to add that to that and multiply it by that. Which way round you do it doesn't matter, and I can do it like that, making sure you put your brackets in, otherwise you may get the wrong answer. And just while we're here, just highlighting a couple of cells, note that down here you get sums, you get counts, and if I double click on one of these, I can paste it into a cell if I want.